I'm going to talk from the point of view of NGOs, and I'm going to caricature my colleagues horribly, so apologies in advance. But I would say NGOs are characterised by doers, action men and women. Our head of advocacy once referred to my job as head of research in Oxfam as beard stroking, yeah? Which kind of shows what she thought of the importance of research and evidence in terms of her advocacy work. And I think a lot of NGOs will look at this book and think, it's far too long, I'm far too busy to read a book. They'll think, anyway, we do it anyway. We all know the world is complex. This is just old wine in new bottles. Yeah, what does this tell me? What is this telling me to do differently? That's what they'll want to know. They may occasionally go and read some of it, but they're going to want to know what does this mean for me? And I fear that probably it's not only NGOs who are going to react like that. So I'm going to try and address that question about the benefits of this book, even for intellectual Philistines. I said none of whom are in this room. I said none of whom are in this room, all watching online, all work in NGOs. So the benefits are that I think there is some of this going on in the aid business and in the NGO business, but it's quite located in things like advocacy, governance, accountability. One of the nice things about this book is it expands that to virtually every corner of the aid business: humanitarian, health, management. So it's really good to take those ideas that have bubbled up in some places and just show why they actually apply pretty much everywhere. I think that's very important. It gives a really strong intellectual foundation for a lot of emerging good practice. I think one of the challenges in aid, in any aid conversation when you're trying to do your theory of change, is to stop people jumping straight into the theory of action and jumping straight into the what do we do, and actually say, could we just spend some time reflecting on the system without us in it? Could we understand where change is likely to come from? What are the drivers of change? What are the blockers? What are the windows of opportunity that are coming down the road? Just hold back on the what do we do stuff and look at the system. And this makes a really strong intellectual case for a far deeper observation of the system before we start getting all action oriented. It pulls out absolutely one of the great gaps in our thinking, which is on the importance of critical junctures. You know, there were lots of things about the Acemoglu and Robinson book I didn't like, but the stuff on critical junctures I thought was absolutely excellent. Just realizing that change is discontinuous, unpredictable, and we've got to both predict it where we can and react to it when we can't. And that's got to be a central part of our planning and thinking and ways of working. It provides intellectual foundation to lots of new NGO buzzwords, so the NGOs are going to be really happy. So convenient brokering, leverage, resilience. It's fantastic. Every buzzword is in here, you know. So and sort of properly scientifically justified. So thank you, Ben, for that. We're always on the search for more buzzwords. Some of the book is very much geared at big players, sort of the sort of macho, diffid World Bank types who want to intervene in entire economies. That's not so much used to the little guys like the NGOs, but there's enough in here, I think, for small intervention sort of stuff to be very useful. A slight difference of emphasis with Owen on the results question. So I think this does make a case for results and for measuring. I think it also makes a really strong case for rethinking what we mean by attribution and what is good enough. What is a plausible story about our impact, and not necessarily thinking that we can always attribute any change to a particular intervention. But I think it does push us towards a much more intelligent approach to results. I'm not sure that the results community are going to get this, and that I think there is going, I'd sometimes say there's these two tribes massing in development. There's the complexity tribe, who now have a new standard bearer in Ben, and there's the value for money tribe, and they're both on hilltops looking at each other, and they're going to at some point descend and slug it out. And I fear that the results people will win because they have the budget. So I'm hoping that this book will help us get away from that very crude clash. I'm not totally convinced it will. A couple of caveats. This is a bit of a love-in, so let's have some criticisms, okay? Another role for NGOs. There's a lot of straw men in here. I'm worried that people in the aid business, when they read the 130-page takedown of aid, will say, that's such a caricature, we all know that, we've moved on. and will be alienated from the really good stuff that comes later. So I think, I know Ben doesn't think this, doesn't think that aid people are stupid, but it comes across a bit like that sometimes. And the structure, okay? This is a book about complexity, but it is astonishingly linear in structure. You have a 120-page takedown of aid, followed by a 120-page introduction to complexity, followed on page 240 by the 120-page guide to how it makes a difference. My concern is that people are not going to get to page 240. So for my NGO colleagues, I would plead with OUP to publish the last 120 pages separately so that we can just read it straight away, because that's the bit that we want. And I think, and I wouldn't blame Ben at all. I would actually probably blame the editor. Somebody should have said, is there another way of doing this where we can get the really important stuff at the end up the front? However, it's a brilliant book. It's a really, really substantial book. And I think it's going to have a big impact. It raises one very big question, I think, for NGOs and maybe more widely. Are the people who currently work in the aid business compatible with complexity? Do we relish uncertainty, ambiguity, not being sure, making it up as we go along? Or do we actually really feel much more comfortable with plans, with indicators, with knowing we've achieved something, and with certainty? If so, then I think there's a really rather large HR question which emerges from this book, but that's probably for another talk.
Very good. Thank you very much, Duncan. Okay, we have about half an hour left to questions, so I'm not going to say a lot. It just seems to me 4 or 5 questions popped out of that. How do you identify situations that require complex approaches? If they do, what do you do on Monday morning, which is kind of what Alison said. How do we pay for it? What are the implications for the results agenda? And the 5th one that Duncan has just said, are we ready for this? So over to you.